I had made 43 Spanish from 5110 brass. The body needed to be swaged down around 25 thousandths in order to match the 43 Spanish's 520 base diameter. However, that's a very time-consuming method. Another idea I had is what if I was able to increase the diameter of a piece of brass, not by fire forming or expanding the case, but by adding more material. That's when I came up with this. This is a piece of 4590 brass, with a piece of brass tubing added to increase the body diameter. I've already shot a few of these cases, so I know they work. If you want to watch that video, I'll link it in the description. But let's rewind a bit to see how I made this. I'm starting with a piece of 4590 brass. Nickel plated is all I have on hand. Then I have a piece of brass tubing. This is 17/32 outside diameter with a 14 thousandths wall thickness. I'll list the item numbers on screen here. It usually comes in 1 foot lengths. This is all I have left after making a few cases already. The inner diameter is 0.503, which means it's a slip fit over the 4590 brass. Obviously though, this piece is too long, so it needs to be cut down. With the 43 Spanish being a bottlenecked cartridge, it makes sense that the sleeve would stop right at the shoulder. I'll cut it at exactly 1.5 inches. The best way to cut this is over on the lathe. I marked the rough length with a Sharpie. I'll cut it a bit long. That way I can remeasure and then bring it to the exact length. The length is spot on. You could see that I also deburred both the outside and the inside. The length is right where I want it to be, just below the shoulder on the finished case. Because the sleeve will need to be sized down significantly, I'll anneal it with a torch. That's a nice purple color. I'll set it aside. While that's cooling, I'm going to roughly trim the 4590 to length. It measures 2.4 inches. 43 Spanish should be right around 2.25 inches. I'll need to remove about this much. To rough trim brass, I like to use this mini chop saw. I'll just eyeball how much to remove. The mini chop saw quickly does the job of rough trimming. This cutoff ring can go into the scrap brass bucket. I'll just clean up the edges where the brass had been cut. One final step before sizing is to do what I can so the sleeve sticks tight to the 4590 case. In my opinion, this is necessary for the slick nickel-plated brass, maybe not so much for plain brass cases. I'm setting it in the chuck so that approximately the length of the sleeve is exposed. I'll use coarse 120 grit sandpaper to rough up the outside of the case. On the case, you can see the difference between the untouched neck and the roughed body, as well as some traces of gold peeking through the nickel. Then I can add the sleeve over the case for the final time. To size these, I'll apply a heavy coat of case wax to the sleeve only, none onto the brass case itself. I don't want any to end up in between the two. In the press I have the number 17 shell holder that comes in the Lee 43 Spanish die set. This will fit the 4590 with the sleeve, but my RCBS number 22 won't. I have the 43 Spanish sizing die installed just like any other die, with a slight cam over of the press. The other important component here is a solid workbench. It's basically equivalent to sizing two cases at once. It starts to get real tough about here, but pulling the case back out leaves the sleeve stuck in the sizing die. The only thing to do here is to keep going. After sizing just a bit more, the sleeve is now stuck tight to the 4590 brass, and it can be re-waxed, which will help quite a bit with the rest of the sizing. That's the case and the sleeve size together, but the sizing die cannot reach all the way down to the base. For that, I need to move to the arbor press and the swaging rings made in the previous video. The base of the sleeve measures 0.540. This will need to be sized down around 20 thousandths. I'll add another coat of case wax to the base, and start swaging with the ring measuring 527. Despite it being a large change, it's over a small area. Then I'll swage with the 521 ring. The process of swaging the end of the sleeve, and perhaps more importantly, removing the swaging rings, doesn't seem to have any effect on the sleeve over the case. This means it's stuck on there good. The base of it is measuring right at 0.521. However, just like the sizing die, the swaging rings aren't able to size all the way down to the rim. It's very close, but the very bottom of the sleeve needs to be trimmed down, along with the 1/1000 that it's oversized. Before turning now, I'll remove the collet and add the stop that will locate the cartridge in the headstock. Then add the collet back, along with the brass. To trim the end of the sleeve, I'll set the parting tool against the rim, then feed it in. Once trimmed, I'll swap the parting tool for the bearing tool used to thicken the rim. Folding the rim leaves a raised burr on the end. I'll file that off, along with just touching up the outside of the rim. The last thing to do here is to trim the length of the case. It increases during sizing, so I do a rough trim first, then a final trim after. Looks like this needs to be cut down by around 35 thousandths. To do so on the lathe, I'll remove the collet. And the stop. Then I can install the case backwards on the collet. I'm pulling out as I tighten, ensuring the rim is butted up against the back of the collet, so that this is repeatable on other cases if I need to. The length is close enough, only 1 thou off. The thickness of the rim is measuring .078. That's a bit under the 85 thousandths that 43 Spanish calls for, but still close enough. And finally, the rim diameter is .617, smaller compared to the 629 of 43 Spanish, but for the third time, close enough. That's the case complete. The outside dimensions are nearly exactly the same as the case made from 5110. Like I said earlier, I have shot these, so I know that they work, and the sleeve remains stuck to the 4590 case after firing. Check the description for that video in case you missed it. Thanks for watching.